Ontario Premier Doug forward with a plea for the Prime Minister ahead of Mark Carney's upcoming state visit to China, as the Prime Minister seeks new markets to offset our increasingly unreliable American trading partner. It's something his predecessor also tried nearly a decade ago, when then Prime Minister Justin Trudeau sought new trade agreements with China's Xi Jinping. Those talks did not end up materializing in a deal, and a lot sure has happened in the interim. Can the Prime Minister expect a different reception from Xi? Joining us now is Guy Saint-Jacques, who was Canada's ambassador to China during Trudeau's first trip to China back in 2016. Hi, Mr. Saint-Jacques. A pleasure to see you as always. Thank you for making the time.
Thank you for the invitation.
I'll start off where the Premier of Ontario left off and just ask you what you think of the prospects of some sort of a deal or agreement being struck to remove those EV tariffs in exchange for the removal of tariffs on canola and other agricultural products.
Well, I can tell you that I had discussions in Ottawa late last year where I was told that there would have to be trade-offs. And of course, what I understood from that was that in exchange for lifting or reducing the tariffs on electric vehicles from China, that the Chinese would do the same thing on canola. But in fact, I think the Prime Minister Carney is quite concerned about further problems that we could have with Donald Trump, and he knows that Donald Trump has said that the United States don't need Canadian cars, and therefore one possible solution to keep Ontarians working would be to invite a Chinese EV car manufacturer to come to Canada, and the arrangement could be similar to the one that GM Canada struck when it went to Shanghai a number of years ago to build a plan whereby we would tell the Chinese that after 3 years, 30% of the components of these cars has to be Canadian, and after 10 years it would be 100%. And so in case that things further deteriorate with the United States, well, we would have a good quality car that would be built in Canada that would ensure employment. So, I think we are at the stage where probably we will see also further developments in terms of Chinese investment in Canada to try to clarify the rules. And the Prime Minister knows that we need to attract more investment from abroad.
Tell me a little bit about your assessment, though, of that tightrope walk that you mentioned off the top. And that is, we're at this very kind of tenuous point with the United States, impactful point with regards to trade negotiations there in the upcoming review of CUSMA. But at the same time, it's obvious, I think, to all Canadians that we need to seek out new markets. And China, from an economic perspective, at the very least, is an obvious choice for that. How do you walk that balancing act? How do you balance those two things, trying to maintain the relationship with the United States and strike a deal there, while at the same time pursue something that we know Donald Trump considers, a country that we know Donald Trump considers an adversary?
You're right, and this is a very delicate balance that the Prime Minister has to strike. But I would say on this, he has been quite clear that there will be a number of areas that will be off-bound in our relationship with China, everything that is related to national security, and he has mentioned the Arctic, artificial intelligence, and I would say that, in a way, going to Beijing and signing agreements, announcing deals, could be helpful in terms of the upcoming renegotiation of CUSMA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, in as much that it would demonstrate to the U.S. president that, in fact, yes, we are heavily dependent on the American market, but we also can ship our oil, our natural gas to China, for instance. They would buy everything that we would ship to them. And last year, a good part of the increase on our exports was oil, and now that liquefied natural gas will start to be shipped, I think they will be a big buyer. But of course, any agreement will be scrutinized in Washington, and we'll have to see. But I'm confident that the Prime Minister Carney could explain to Donald Trump that he does this for the same reasons that Donald Trump will be going to China in April. It's to protect jobs, help farmers to sell their canola, and fishermen in Atlantic Canada sell their lobsters.
And I do understand your point and the Prime Minister's, that our approach will be, one that in essence, tries to compartmentalize, right? That in essence tries to say, you know, we're still concerned about national security, but we're just going to have this bucket here of amplified trade that we hope to pursue. The person who keeps reminding me that though we may want to compartmentalize, China does not view things that way is, in fact, Michael Kovrig, who has said that in nearly every interview I've conducted with him, who was, of course, one of the two Michaels alongside Michael Spavor who were detained by China. What is your view on China's approach to that? Like, if we may want to approach this from a compartmentalized way, will they?
Yeah. Well, in fact, it doesn't need to be that way because, you know, the Prime Minister will be making an official visit, and he will have quite a bit of time. We don't know exactly how much time he will spend in Beijing and whether he will go to other cities, but I expect that he will have a day and a half of official meetings in Beijing. The fact that he is perceived as a serious, competent leader, contrary to our previous leader, he is a known quantity by the Chinese leaders. They met with him when he was in the private sector, when he went to China in 2024. I think this allows him to have very frank discussions on sensitive issues. One, for instance, where I expect the Prime Minister to be very clear on our own red lines concern Chinese interference in Canadian life. On that, I think for the Prime Minister to be seen in his efforts to recalibrate the relationship with China, he has to reassure the Canadians that he is taking seriously all those allegations, that in fact there will be zero tolerance for further Chinese interference or Chinese spying in Canada. And I expect him also to raise in private, in a respectful way, tough issues related to human rights in Xinjiang, in Tibet, but also the case, for instance, of Jimmy Lai in Hong Kong. And the Chinese will appreciate all this. So, in my view, one does not exclude the other, and the Prime Minister can make a case why it's useful to China. And by the way, China needs an international system that functions. The 20% of their GDP comes from exports, so they need this to continue. But the Prime Minister can impress on them that they have to become what I would call a better global citizen, respect the rules, and finally deliver on the commitments they made to open their markets when they joined the World Trade Organization back in 2001. So I expect quite a bit of progress on a number of fronts. And yes, officially we will see, I expect, a number of announcements related to those tariffs and various areas of where we can work together. But, you know, there will be other discussions for sure taking place in Beijing.
Okay, I have to leave it on that note, Mr. Saint-Jacques. Thanks for your time, as always, and your analysis. I appreciate it.
Thank you.